Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Today we are journeying into the lovely land of the quadratic formula. But before we do that, let's solve through completing the square. Just a nice little refresher from the previous lesson. Okay, so we've got standard form, ax squared plus bx plus c. And in order to be able to solve with completing the square, well, our a value must be 1. Here we don't know what it is, so we have to divide everything by a to establish and make sure that it is 1. So we get x squared plus b over ax plus c over a is equal to 0. All right, now we're good to go. Well, in order to complete the square, reminder from yesterday, we're going to have to create this perfect square trinomial. So let's subtract c over a to both sides and knowingly add those blank spaces, because whatever we add to one side, we're going to have to add to the other. It's an equation. It's an equal sign, so one side has to balance. Well, how do we know what to add? We're going to have to take half of our middle term, so we're going to have b over a divided by 2, which gives us b over a times a half, which gives us b over 2a. And then we have to square it. Now, if you're going to square a fraction, remember you square the top and the bottom, so we get b squared over 4a squared. Pardon me. And that's what we're going to add to the top and the bottom. So b squared over 4a squared to both sides. Did I just say add to the top and the bottom? That doesn't make sense. That's what we're going to add to both sides. So sorry. Okay, so the beauty of a perfect square trinomial is that it factors so clean and it ends up being half the middle term. Well, our middle term is positive, so it's going to be plus. Half of it is b over 2a, like we saw from our thought bubble, quantity squared. And then on the right-hand side of our equal sign, we're going to need to have common denominators. So let's multiply 4a to the top and the bottom. So we get a negative 4ac over 4a squared plus b squared, and then over a 4a squared. All right, super abstract with the variables and all the letters, but just keep in mind your end goal. You're trying to solve. We're trying to get x by itself. So let's clean it up a little bit. X plus b over 2a quantity squared. And let's say that this is b squared minus 4ac. Let's just have that positive in front. That looks a lot better. Okay, and then we have to take the square root because we're trying to solve for x. We have to get rid of that square. So x plus b over 2a is equal to, don't forget, when you take the square root, you need a what? Yep, you need a plus and a minus. The square root of b squared minus 4ac. And I'm only going to put it in the numerator because I know in the denominator, square root of 4 is 2, and then the square root of a squared is a. This is looking slightly familiar. I wonder. Last step is to, oh my gosh, I'm going to subtract ba to both sides. So we get negative b over 2a plus and minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac. Oh my Lanta. We started with a quadratic standard form. We used completing the square to do what? To generate the quadratic formula, ladies and gentlemen. I know. This is pretty fantastic. You're so welcome for sharing that. It is kind of cool. It won't be a test question, but it's very helpful to know where things come from. Where does the quadratic formula come from? It comes from standard form. It's pretty awesome. So let's solve. In order to solve, it has to be equal to 0. So I'm going to immediately subtract 2 to both sides. And let's identify what a, b, and c are. A is 5, b is negative 2, and c is negative 2. All right, here we go. So x is equal to a negative b plus and minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c, all over. The entire numerator has to be over that product of 2a. Okay, don't just do the radical. Don't just do the negative b. It's the whole thing. Okay, so I know some of you have learned it through a song, through a rhyme, however, okay, but make sure you do kind of refresh your memory if needed. Simplify. So 2 negatives gives us a positive 2 plus and minus the square root of 2 squared. Negative 2 squared is 4. And then we have a negative 4 times 5 times a negative 2. So we get negative 20 times negative 2 gives us a positive 40 all over 10. If we keep going, we get to plus and minus the square root of 44 over 10. We're not done yet. We can take out a perfect square. So 44 is 4 times 11. Square root of 4 is 2, so we get 2 plus and minus 2 rad 11 all over 10. Now, if you're going to reduce with the denominator, you have to be able to reduce with both of these terms, not just one. Since we can, I'm going to factor out a greatest common factor to help me see that. So then I can reduce. So our final answer is going to be 1 plus and minus the square root of 11 all over 5. It does not say anywhere to approximate or round, so that's our final answer. Okay, take a look at example number 2. We're dealing with wrapping paper. We're trying to raise money for a charity, and we're given this equation. So right away I see that it's in standard form. I see that it has a negative a value, which means it opens down, which means the vertex is at the top. Okay, and it's modeling the profit. So P, which is in our f of x location, is our profit. The price is x. Okay, so we're looking for the smallest amount in dollars that we can charge per roll. Okay, so charge is x, pardon me, to make a profit of $1,500. All right, well, let's do it. If P is 1,500, we're going to set that equal to the given equation. So negative 6x squared plus 280x minus 1,200. And then we're going to have to, from here, set it equal to 0, because you can't solve a quadratic equation ever unless it's equal to 0. So I'm going to subtract 1,500 to both sides. We end up with negative 2,700. Okay, well, we're looking for the smallest amount in dollars. Since this opens down, it's not our maximum. We're definitely looking for our smallest amounts. So let's solve and see what x equals. Remember, x are, or it can be, your roots, your solutions, your zeros, your x-intercepts. Oh man, okay, so I definitely think that we can reduce by a greatest common factor. Looking at it, what do you guys think that is? What do you think? Let's start with 2. Okay, we'll divide everything by 2. And see where that takes us. So 0 is equal to negative 3x squared plus 140x minus 1350. Okay, I think we'll stop at that point. So A is now negative 3, B is 140, and then C is negative 1350. The reason I'm identifying A, B, and C is because I'm pretty sure it's not going to factor. And if it does, let's be honest, I don't want to factor it because there's really large numbers. Okay, so here we go. X is equal to a negative B, so negative 140 plus and minus the square root of B squared minus 4 times A times C all over, remember the entire numerator is over our product of 2a. You are absolutely more than welcome to, pardon me, not write out A, B, and C. But I will always do it. Sorry about that. I will always do it just to make sure that I don't make a mistake. All right, now when putting it into your calculators, don't forget that the negative is at the very bottom of your calculator. And I highly suggest that you do the numerator and then the denominator. Don't try to do it in one fell swoop unless you are super comfortable with your calculator, because right now we're learning, yeah? So I'm putting it into my calculator right now as we speak. Okay, so we have x, oh gosh, x is approximately negative 149.7, and you're gonna have to do it twice. Your calculator does not have a, oh man, what did I do that was wrong? Haha, and I found it. I put it in my calculator wrong. So learn by example, ladies and gentlemen. Be careful when putting it in your calculators, please. Okay, so we got approximately 13.62, and I'm gonna round out to the hundredths because we're dealing with money, and that makes sense. So like I said, you can only do There we go. A plus and then a minus separately. Your calculator won't do both for you at the same time. So we're going to say that the smallest amount in dollars that we can charge is $13.62. All because it asked for the smallest amount. Make sure also, please, that you guys write complete sentences because they're asking us a specific question. So we're going to say the smallest amount. The smallest amount that we can charge for a profit, whoops, there should definitely be a space there, of $1,500 is $13.62. So that would be our actual answer. Sweet. All right, nice job, guys. Okay, so we know the quadratic formula. We've learned that before. It is time for us, ladies and gentlemen, to move on to new, bigger, and better things. What is that? Ah, don't you wish you knew?